Welcome to my Card Suits Crochet mini series. In today's video we're going to be making the club. So for this tutorial you can use any weight of yarn that you want and any colour, so I'm going to use green aran yarn for this tutorial. And then in terms of your crochet hook, I like to use a 4mm crochet hook with aran weight yarn, but feel free to use the recommendations on the yarn label if you're not sure about what size to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to be working in rows for this, so we're going to need to start off by doing a foundation chain. So, and don't worry about leaving a particularly long tail at the beginning, but it is good to leave a little bit of a length of tail here because it just makes it easier for weaving in the ends whenever we finish the piece. So we're going to start off by chaining 3. Then we're going to work across the chain, so we're going to do 2 single crochets across the chain, starting from the second chain from hook, so always ignore this first chain and go into the second one here. What we also can do at this point is to crochet over this tail. It just helps to keep it more secure. It's not the end of the world if you don't do this, but I always like to try to do this where possible. So I'm just going to work my 2 single crochets. And that is row 1 complete, where we've just got 2 single crochets. Now for row 2 we're going to chain 1, turn, and we're going to work 2 increases. So an increase is just doing 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So this is my first increase, and then this is my second increase, which means we have 4 single crochets at the end of row 2. Then for row 3 we're going to chain 1, turn, and we're always going to chain 1 and turn at the beginning of every row, and then we're going to work an increase, 2 single crochets, and then another increase, which means that we're up to 6 single crochets now. Then for rows 4 and 5 we're going to do the same thing in both rows, so we're going to chain 1, turn, and then just work 6 single crochets across in each. So this is row 4, then row 5, then row 6 we're going to chain 1, turn, and then we're going to do a decrease. So just start off like you're doing a normal single crochet, but then instead of yarning over and pulling through both loops on your hook, go into the next single crochet, pull up another loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. Then we're going to do 2 single crochets, and then another decrease, which gets us down to 4 single crochets. At this point we're now going to cut our yarn, leave a little bit of a tail again, just makes it a bit easier at the end when you're weaving everything in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start a new foundation chain, because we're going to be creating the sort of 2 leaves, I suppose, of the club. I don't really know what you would call them, but we need to basically add some extra stitches to either side of this row here to be able to get that effect, and it's easiest to do this with starting a new foundation chain. So let's get on to that now. So for row 7, before I start, I'm just going to flip this piece here so that it's this way round instead, so that the tail is just on the right hand side rather than the left hand side, so that it's ready for me to crochet into in this row. So for row 7 I'm starting with chaining 3, then I'm going to work 4 single crochets across row 6, and this might be a good opportunity to crochet over this tail from row 6 as well, so feel free to try and do that as you're doing your 4 single crochets. You might want to pull on it a bit. You can see here that that gap just closed up when I pulled on the tail, so I'd recommend doing that as well. Then you're going to chain 4, and that's all we're going to do for row 7. Then for row 8 we're going to turn our work. We don't actually need to chain one at the beginning of this row because we already added an extra chain onto the end of what we did here. Obviously we did 4 chains rather than 3. So now what we're going to do for row 8 is we're simply going to single crochet across, including doing 1 single crochet in each of the chains starting from the second chain from hook. So that should be 1, 2, 3 chains on this side. Then we're going to work back into the main piece that we did the 4 single crochets into, so we're just going to work on top of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to work another 3 single crochets into the other chains that we did at the beginning. So 1, and again, actually this might be a good opportunity to crochet over this tail. So 1, 2, 3. So now for row 9, chain 1, turn, and then we're going to do an increase. Then we're going to work 8 single crochets. And then finally we're going to increase in the final single crochet, which gets us up to 12 at the end of row 9. From row 10 onwards, we're then going to start working the 2 sides of the club leaves separately. So for row 10 on this side of our piece, we're going to start by chaining 1, turning, and then we're going to do an increase, 3 single crochets, and then a decrease. So we should have 6 single crochets at this point. Row 11, chain 1, turn, decrease, 2 single crochets, decrease. Then finally row 12, chain 1, turn, 2 decreases. Now cut your yarn, again leaving a little bit of a tail just to make our life easier. And then we're going to repeat that all on the other side. So now we're going to reattach our yarn and do kind of like the mirror image of what we did on this side. So we're going to reattach our yarn into the first available single crochet after the end of row 10 that we did previously. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do a decrease, 3 single crochets, and then an increase, then chain 1, turn, decrease, 2 single crochets, decrease, then chain 1, turn, and 2 decreases. And then again cut your yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail. So now the final step is just to add that stem in the middle, so let's move on to doing that now. So this time I'm going to reattach my yarn in this space between the 2 leaves on either side. So I'm just going to go into the rightmost stitch to start with, pull the yarn tail through and reattach the yarn. And then for row 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work 1 single crochet, but I'm almost going to work it as if it were a decrease. So because obviously this row here was 12 single crochets, there's no central stitch for this. So in order to kind of make this as central as possible, I'm going to act as if I'm doing a single crochet in the rightmost stitch here, but then I'm going to also go into the one next to it and pull up another loop, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on my hook like that, and that just gets it into more of a central position as I explained. So now what I'm going to do is chain 1, turn, and then I'm going to do an increase, then chain 1, turn, and do just single crochet across, chain 1, turn, and again just do 2 single crochets across, then chain 1, turn, do 2 increases, then chain 1, turn, and do just single crochet across, okay. Now you can cut your yarn, this time leaving a long tail for sewing, assuming that you're going to be sewing this onto something afterwards. So that's what I've just done there. So you can see hopefully everything's taken shape. Now all that's left to do is to weave in and cut the remaining ends. So before you start weaving in any ends, just determine what's going to be your front side. I like the front side to be wherever I can see the little V's at the bottom of the final row. So obviously on this side you can see them, and on this side you can't see them. So this is going to be my front side, but you can pick whatever side you just like the look of best. Then you're going to need to make sure that any tails that you haven't sufficiently crocheted over, you want them to be on the wrong side of your work, so the side that's not going to be showing. So this one, for example, I'm just going to pull that through to the back of my work. This one here, however, it looks like this has been crocheted over sufficiently, so I'm not actually going to knot that one any further. I'm just going to cut that, and that one will be finished with already. So all of the other tails I think are fine, so I'm going to flip over to the wrong side of my work, and I'm going to start weaving in my tails. So what I'm going to do is for each tail I usually just do 1 knot like this, and then I usually weave through another stitch nearby, and then trim the tail. Don't cut it completely because it's more likely to unravel that way, and because this part isn't going to be visible, it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of tail left on the back as well. So I just do this for all of the tails. So let's do another example, this one here. This one's a bit more challenging because the tail is shorter, but I'll try my best. There we go, I got it in. So that one I might just leave because it's short enough anyway. But yeah, so obviously you can see I've got this tail, this one, and I think that's, and this one as well at the bottom. So there are quite a lot of tails to weave in for this one, but I'll do the rest off camera so as to not bore you, and I'll show you what it looks like in the end. So this is what my finished club looks like with all the ends weaved in on the back, as you can see. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you want to know how to make the other card suits, I've got videos for the rest of them on my channel as well in the playlist down below. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.